This is Gemara in Kesubos Daf Zayin. All the learning for this month, the month of Elul, as we get closer and closer to Rosh Hashanah, has been generously sponsored as an incredible schos, neshama of Reyzel Basra Mair, Mirta Hashem. The learning the entire Chabura today will be concluding the 7th parak of Kesubos Mirta Hashem. Should bring us a Reyzel Basra Mair to an higher place in Gan Eden Shalmayla. We're holding on. I involve in the base. We are 2 lines in the bottom, which we quote the din of the Mishnah. We quote the din of the Mishnah. It says, "V'chachamim ma'imrim," say the chachamim b'med ma'amurim b'mumin shevasezer. So the Mishnah concluded with the differentiation from the chachamim. Where are these mumin? That which we've been discussing the past few days. If a husband wants to stay married or doesn't want to stay married to a wife, when he finds out she has a mum, says the Gemara, where was that mum? Is that mum in an external place, a place that is visible to all? Or, says the Chachamim, or is it internally and therefore no one was able to see what it was? So says the Gemara, Omar Rav Nachman, explains Rav Nachman as we turn over to Ayin Zayin, Omid Aleph, says Rav Nachman, V'nichbe kemumin shebesefer daimi. Says Rav Nachman, epilepsy, someone who faints all the time, is compared to a hidden type of mum. V'hani immediately explains the Gemara, the Kabbalah Zman, explains the Gemara that this din, that you have a fixed time, is only if there is, is only when the Kviyah Zman, that it's possible that a woman could conceal this condition. But if there is no time, if there's no fixed time, if she has these epileptic fits at any given moment, then there's no way that she could conceal it, and then it's going to be considered a revealed mum, which the husband we would assume would have known about before going into this marriage. Continues the Gemara in the Mishnah. Now we flip the coin, and now we move over to the man. What if the husband has a mum, and the wife does not want to stay married to him? So says the Mishnah on the top of Nun Ayin Zayin ben Aleph, Ha'ish and Oldu by Mumin, Ein Koifin Haisayla Haitzi. If the man develops a mum, we do not force him to divorce his wife. Says Rashbag, which the Gemara doesn't explain exactly what it is, as Rashi points out, then we do indeed force him to divorce his wife. So now we're discussing not that the woman has a mum, but rather the husband, and says the Mishnah, a small mum the woman will overlook, but a large mum she will not. Says the Gemara, Rav Yehuda Tani, says Rav Yehuda, Naldai. He learned that the lashon of the Mishnah is Naldai, that the husband develops these women, they came after the marriage. Rav Tani, Hayu, that he had these women all along. So explains the Gemara, Man Damar Naldu, Kolshkin Hayu. If there's a Man Damar that says that even when it is Naldu, even when the mum came after they got married, we still do not force the man to divorce his wife, certainly if the mum was there prior. Why? Says the Gemara, the Kasavra V'Kibla, because she knew about it and she accepted it. However, Mandam or Hayu, but the other way, the Mandam that says she had the mum all along, I will not lie. But if they came afterwards, then not necessarily is he not forced to divorce her because she never knew about it. And therefore, maybe the din of the Mishnah would change. Says the Gemara, let's try to prove what's going on. Tonight we learn to the Mishnah. This is quoting the Mishnah. Says Rav Shimon Gamliel, the din of the Mishnah is only a mum katan, but a large mum we force him to divorce her. Says the Gemara, it makes a lot of sense. The Manda Omar that says that the mum came into being after their marriage, I understand the differentiation between mum gedolim and mum ketanim. Of course, she did not know about it, and therefore we're saying that's only a small mum, she potentially didn't know about it. But a big mum, then we do force him to get divorced. Ella l'mandamar hayu, if she had the mum alone, mali gedolim, mali ketanim. Says the Gemara, I don't understand. If he always had this mum, what's the difference, the type of mum? Hasavra v'kibla. Even if it's a large mum, asks the Gemara, if she knew about it prior, then why would there be a reason why he would have to divorce her? Obviously she knew about it, and it didn't bother. Says the Gemara, no. She thought I'll be able to live with this man. I'll be able to not mind this mum that he has. But now she says, I realize I can't do it. And of course, that would only be by mum katan. And that's going to be the differentiation in the Mishnah. Says the Gemara, what are these mumen? Nishvas ragloi. Explains if Shimon Gamliel, his eye is blinded, or his hand is cut off, or his foot is shattered, these are large mumen. Itmar, says the Gemara of Abba Bar Yaakov, Amar Rav Yechon of Shimon Gamliel, that's what we paskin. Rav Amar Rav Nachman Kedei Rechanim. As the Gemara Meir Rav Yechon and Achin, as Yechon really say that, Amar Rav Chanan Rav Yechon Bechol Makim Sheshon Shimon Gamliel Shazeno Lach Kamaisai. But Rav Yechon learned that we always paskin like Rashbag Chutz. Except for three famous cases, Meir of Sidon V'Raya Achrayna. Says the Gemara, Amarai Ninu Ali with Rav Yechanan. It's true, these are different Amarayim in quoting what was indeed the opinion of Rav Yechanan. We continue in the next Mishnah of today, and Ayin Zayin halfway down, that the Mishnah continues discussing different mumen. Says the Mishnah of Elu Shekayvin Asela Oitzi. The following mumen, we do force the man to divorce his wife. Mukas Shchin. If the man is full of boils, ubal, poilipos, or he has a polypos, a type of disease that makes him repulsive, v'hamekamates, or he gathers, as the Gemara is going to explain, he collects excrement, v'amitzarif the chayshes, he deals with kaparol, deva borsi, or a tanner. Whether he had these conditions all along or they came afterwards, regardless, these are the cases where we force him to get divorced. Va'al kulam, and in all these cases, Amar Meir Avabi Shesna Yima, Yochayli Shetamayimar Svayra Yisa Sheinechol Kabel Achshav Kabel. Says Rameir, in all these cases, he's able to say that she's able to say, that I thought I'd be able to live with him, but I realized that I'm not able to. That is how Rameir explains. But Chachamim Aimrim on the second medium-sized line. No, should we make her accept them against her will? Chutz, except for Mukashchen. Mukashchen is the only case in which we do not force her to stay married to him. Why not? Explains the Mishnah, you know why? Because if she has intimate relations with him, it's going to cause his flesh to fall apart. And that's going to make his condition even worse. All the other mumen, we do indeed force the husband to divorce her for her benefit. But if the husband has boils, then we force him to divorce her for his own benefit. Why? Because he can never be in a situation that he prevents his wife from having intimate relations. Continues the Mishnah. There's a story in a place called Sidon involving a borsi, a tanner. Shemeis that died, brother, that was a borsi. So the question was, what's the story with Yibam? On one hand, the husband was a tanner, so therefore we see the wife could handle it. So is there a form of Yibam? Says the Mishnah, she could say, she's able to say, nothing doing. To your brother was a tanner, I was able to stay married to, but to you, I cannot handle it. Says the Gemara. Now we're going to go and delve further into a lot of the mum in the Mishnah. My Baal Palipos, what was a Baal Palipos? You know, referred to someone who has bad breath. He had an odor of the nose. The Brisa says he has bad breath. Ravashi Masni Ibcha b'Manach Basiman. Ravashi learned it the opposite, and he gave a siman Shmuel Abazik Pume Mikule Birkin, and the siman that he gave to remember that Shmuel's mouth did not stop from discussing the entire chapter, and that's a siman showing us that Shmuel is the opinion that's going to be the Reach HaPeh, as we remember that he was talking in the entire parak. We continue with the Mishnah. It said Hamekametz, literally one who gathers in handfuls. My mekamet, asks Gemara, this refers to one who collects the tzaya, the manure of a dog. That is with his own hands, and that is the case that it's pretty difficult to live with such a man. Meisvei asked the Gemara, no. Mekamitz is not one that collects excrement, says the Brayso. It's a tanner. Says the Gemara, based on what you're saying, did she look masti, so we could ask for the Mishnah itself. What did the Mishnah say? So we see that the Mekamitz is not a borsi. So says the Gemara, the Mishnah makes a lot of sense. You know why? Because the Mishnah, one of them we were talking about a small tanner, and when it's a large tanner, and when it says Mekamitz, that's referring to a small tanner. El Rav Yehuda Kasha explains the Gemara, Tanayi, it's machlokes that Tanayi, and the Tanayi Mekamitz, the Boris, Visham is the Mekamitz, so you ask Kalavim, so machlokes, what is a Mekamitz? Is it a tanner, or is it one that collects the excrement of a dog? Continuing in the Gemara, we're at the 2 dots, 8 lines of the white lines, Ayin Zayin and Aleph. HaMetzaref Nechayshes v'Aborsi my Metzaref Nechayshes. What is a literally refiner of copper? Rav Ashi Amar Cholshi Dudi. Says Rav Ashi refers to a coppersmith who pounds kettles. Rav Chana Amar Zamachatech Nechayshes. Not that they pound kettles, but he mines copper from the ground. Me'i kara. Tani kvasei Rav Chana Izam Metzaref Nechayshes Me'i kara. Continuing the theme of people who potentially are forced to divorce their wife, says Rav, a case that we spoke about extensively. Someone says, I'm not going to feed my wife, and I'm not going to give her anything, let her take care of herself. We force him to divorce her and pay her ksuba. So Rav Elazar went and said this in front of Shmuel. Omar, Shmuel said, feed barley to Elazar. Says Shmuel, I don't understand. Why are we forcing him to divorce his wife? Force him to feed his wife. V'Rav explains the Gemara. So what exactly did Rav mean? In Adar Nachash Bichfifa. Rav, you can't live with a snake with a basket. Therefore, it's impossible for the husband to live in such a matziv. Therefore, we don't say we force him to feed her, but rather he could divorce her. On this case is where they fed Elazar barley in Bavel. This was where the story occurred. Continues the Gemara, Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav Asi. The first wide line, Ein Maisin Ella Lipsilas. Ein Maisin. Maisin is coming from the form of the word that means to force. We do not force a man to divorce his wife, Ella Lipsilas, unless they're married to a woman who is pasul. What's a case of someone who's pasul? Those cases we force to get divorced. But if someone is married to a woman that doesn't have children for 10 years, we do not force him to divorce her. But that was one way of learning Shmuel. Rav Tachlifa bar Bimi Amar Shmuel, we force him to get divorced. Tanan. So explains the Gemara, Kasha on the second way of learning. We learned in the Mishnah, the Mishnah said the following people, we have to force the husband to divorce their wife. Someone with shchen, or this Baal Pelipus first with the odor of the nose or the mouth. According to Rav Asi, says the Gemara, I understand the Mishnah. Why? Because the Mishnah says only cases of Rabbanan, but not cases of Daraisa, like these cases of Yichos. Why isn't this case of a mum of someone who doesn't have children for 10 years, why isn't that listed in the Mishnah? Says Rav Nachman, you know the difference is, where they did not have children, we force the husband through words. The case in the Mishnah, we force him by beating him up with physical force. Why? Because she's not able to tolerate the fact that he had all these moments. Asks Rav Abba, I don't understand. The pasuk says with words, b'dvarim lo yuzar eved will not be disciplined. So how could you say that we force a man to fulfill the mitzvah puravu, that we force him through words? We see that forcing with words is not enough. Elam Rav Abba hava b'shaiti. Says Rav Abba, you're right. They're both referring to forcing with force. Turning over to Ayin, Zayin Omid Beis. Hasa ki am Ravina ba'adei shavkinan la. Chafal gav dam Ravina ba'adei loy shavkinan la. But explains the Gemara, in the case of our Mishnah, if the wife says, I'll stay with him despite the mu'min, then we let her do so. But over here, in this case of not having children, we don't let her stay married. Asks the Gemara, what do you mean? In the case of Mucha Shchen, even though she is saying that I want to stay married to him, we don't let her. That's not a cause having relations deteriorates and ruins the condition of the Mucha Shchen, the boils. Katani Asam, and we learned it. Explains the Gemara, Ki Amrina and Deyarna Ba'adei B'Sadei Shavkinula, means that she says, I'll live with him with witnesses, meaning we will not be intimate together and therefore will not aggravate its conditions of boils. So ask Gemara, whereas in this case, if she says, excuse me, I'll live with him with witnesses, we don't let her do so. Why not? Because it's going to prevent him from fulfilling the mitzvah of Pru Urevu. Continues the Gemara on the topic of boils. Tanya. Amar Rav Yosi. 10 lines down, the first one line is Yosi. Sachli Zakin Echamach Yerushalayim. One of the elders of Jerusalem told me the following: the 24 types of boils. And all these types of boils, Chazal taught us that having dashmish relations are harmful to them. Ubale rasin kasha mikulan, and the worst of them all is bale rasin. Mimai have, says the Gemara. Where does this condition called rasin? Where does it come from? The Daniel zikis dam v'shimesh havle bonim vasikin. If someone lets blood and then has dashmish with his wife, he's going to have a bonim vasikin rachmana litzlan, feeble children. Hikizu shneim and shimshuv, they both left blood and they slept with each other. Havle bonin bale rasan. That's when they have these kids with this dreadful disease called rasan. Amar Abba this is only if they didn't eat something. After letting blood, you eat something, it gives you the kayach, then there is no problem. My simane, says the Gemara, 2 lines for the medium-sized lines. What are the symptoms of this disease called rasan? Dalfon Eine, the eyes teary, the diyave, nechire, the nostrils run, vaisila reire mepume, and there's lots of spit in his mouth, ramu didva aluye, and there's flies swarming all around him. Continues the Gemara on the first medium-sized line, Maya asute, what is the cure for this disease called rasan? Amrabaya pili veludi girda daguzi, pili pennyroyal and wormwood, girda daguza v'girda dashba, and together with this wormwood and pennyroyal, the bark of a nut tree and the shavings of a hide, uklil malka, and a lily, umetachla dedigla simka. And what do they do with all these items? They cover them up with red dates, which are young dates. You cook it together. And then you take this concoction and you bring it into a marble house. There's no air. And if you don't have a marble house, you take it into a house that's made of shev b'ni v'aricha. It's a thickness of 7 rows of bricks thick. Again, in order to ensure that there be no air inside the house. And what do? And you take 300 cups of this concoction, you pour it on his head. Until the surface of the skull, the moichi of the brain, softens up. You rip open the skull, and that allows you to see this organism that's causing this dreadful disease called rason. You bring 4 leaves of adasim, and with each adasim you lift up the leg of this bug, of this rason bug in his brain, and you put a leaf underneath. V'shakal b'sivsa, and you remove the organisms with tongs. V'kalilei, then burn it. Because if you don't burn it, it's going to come back. So how do you get rid of this disease called rasan? You have to do some open brain surgery. You got to open up, soften the skull, open it up, and delicately remove this bug called rasan. Says the Gemara, Machriz Rav Yechanan, the second white line, Azurum Azbuzi Shalbali Raisan. Says Rav Yechanan, You should warn the flies. You should be careful of the flies that are those that are around those who have rasan. Rav Zera Lavi Yosef Zike. Rav Zera would not sin in an area that had the same wind as one that had rasan. Rav Elazar Lo Ayel Ba'alai. Rav Elazar wouldn't even go into the tent of someone who had this. Rav Abi Rav Asi Lavi Ochlim Abi Dahu Mevua. He would not eat eggs that came from that neighborhood, all with the concern that they're going to contract this horrible disease. Whereas if Yeshua ben Levi Yeshua ben Levi didn't distance himself from all these people with disease. What did he do? He stayed with them. And what did he do? He learned the Torah. Amar in the fourth one, said Rav Yeshua ben Levi, the Torah calls a beloved hind and has lots of charm. If it gives someone chayin, certainly it's going to protect them. So Yeshua ben Levi was not scared of contracting his disease, and rather he just sat and learned Torah with them. Says the Gemara, and Yeshua ben Levi was nefter amr le malach hamaves. They said to the malach hamaves, zel avle ravasa. He said to the malach hamaves, go do whatever he wishes. Azal is chazi lei. The Malach Mava went and saw Yeshua ben Levi Amar lei achvilei dochtoi. So Yeshua ben Levi said to the Malach Mava, bring me up to Gan Eden and show me my portion. Amar lei lechayai, no problem. Amar lei havli zakinoch. So Yeshua ben Levi says, give me your knife. Give me your, what's it called? Give me your, that knife thing, whatever it's called, sickle. Dilma, mevazali borcha, maybe I'm scared of the journey. Yavani Leis Malach Hamaves goes and gives Yeshua ben Levi his knife. When they get to Gan Eden, when they get to Gan Eden, the Malach Hamaves lifted Yeshua ben Levi up and showed him his place. Shivar Nafal Augisam. Yeshua ben Levi jumped and fell to the other side of the fence. Nokte Bekarna Diglima. But the Malach HaMaves held on to the corner of Yeshua ben Levi's clothing. Amar le b'shvuasad lo asina. Said the Malach HaMaves, said Yeshua ben Levi, I make a shvuah that I'm not coming back. So now we have a problem. The Malach HaMaves wants to bring Yeshua ben Levi out of Gan Eden. But there was a shvuah. Amar kutsha b'richu says Hashem. If Rav Yeshua ben Levi had ever taken a shvuah and it was made for that shvuah, he has to come back. But if Rav Yeshua ben Levi was clean, never took shvuahs, then he does not have to come back. So what happens? Amar lei. The Malach HaMaves says Rav Yeshua ben Levi, Havli sakinai. Give me back my knife. Yeshua ben Levi did not want to give the Malach HaMaves back his knife. Abasko went out and said to Yeshua ben Levi, Havni halai. Give him his knife. You know why you have to give him his knife? Because it's needed for other people. So what happens next? Machras Eliyahu Kamei. Yeshua ben Levi is walking into Gan Eden. Eliyahu Hanavi calls out, Penu Makayim Lebar Levoi, Penu Makayim Lebar Levoi. No less than Eliyahu Hanavi himself yells out, clear a place for Bar Levoi, clear a place for Bar Levoi. Oh, Zol Ashkei Lev Shemin Yochai. So who does Yeshua ben Levi meet? He finds the Heliga Rashbi. That Rashbi is sitting on 13 chairs of fine gold. So Rashbi says, Yeshua ben Levi, you're Bar Levoi. Yes. So Rashbi asks Yeshua ben Levi, do you ever see a rainbow in your life? He says, yes. So he says, Rashbi, so then you know what? You must not be Bar Levoi. It says it's not true. A rainbow indeed was never seen in the days of Yeshua ben Levi. Yeshua ben Levi didn't want to be haughty. He figured, I'm not going to boast Interesting, he's up in Gan Eden and he's making up stories to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. And that is the end of the story. Interesting, we don't really get the postscript on exactly what happened over here, how he came back down, or if he came back down. And of course, the Mefarshim deal with exactly deeper pshatim in this Gemara. But time is getting late, let's finish up the parak. Says the Gemara, another story. Rav Chanina bar Papa Shadvine Have. Rav Chanina bar Papa was a friend to the Malach HaMavet Kevinich Nafshei. When it came time for Rav Chanina bar Papa to die, Amar le Malach HaMavet Zilavali Reusa. So the Malach HaMavet said to him, he said to Malach HaMavet, go and do whatever he wants. So he came to Rav Chanina bar Papa and he appeared to him. So what did Rachlina bar Papa, what was his final request? Give me 30 days so I can review all my Torah. Ta'amri explains Rachlina bar Papa because they say Hashem Misha Balikan. But Talmuda biyadai, praiseworthy is one that comes here to heaven with his learning in his hands. So Shavke, so Malach HaMavet left in the bus, and after 30 days he comes back. So now Rachlina bar Papa says, show me my place upstairs. No problem. Give me your knife. Maybe I'll get scared on the road. So Malach HaMavet said, I'm not falling for this one again. You want to do like your friend, like Rishum and Levi. I am not giving you my knife. Amar le, 8 lines for the end of the Amid. I see Sefer Torah. So Rachlina bar Papa said to the Malach HaMavet, bring a Sefer Torah and see is there anything in that Torah that it says that I didn't fulfill? So Amar le, the Malach HaMavet says, did you stick close? Were you close to people who had this rasa? And that was the Meiler Rishub and Levi that he sat and he sat and learned Torah even with those afflicted with the worst of diseases. Concludes the Gemara of Afilu Achi, and nevertheless, when Rachlina bar Papa was nifter, even though he didn't go up to Gan Eden while he was alive, if Seglei Amuda Denura, there was a pillar of fire that stood. Bein Didei La'alma separated himself to the world. The Gamirian, we have a that such a scenario only happens once in a generation, or perhaps to 2 people in a generation. Kari Ligabe Rav Alexandria. So what happened? Rav Alexandria went to the column of fire and Amar Asa Bishvil Kavod Chachamim. Act for the sake of the Chachamim. Meaning they wanted to bury Rav Chanina bar Papa, but they couldn't get close to him because there was a column of fire. So he said, move away for the sake of the Chachamim. Lo ashich, the fire did not listen. Asa b'shvil k'vod avicha. Do for the sake of your father. Lo ashich, asa b'shvil k'vod atzmacha. It's taluk. And then what happened? The fire left. Amar Abaye, and says Abaye, 3 lines at the bottom. Afuki mandaloi kayim. What this comes to teach us, the fire is separating the tzaddikim from any other person who did not fulfill the Torah as well as he did. Amar lei. Rav Adavar Masla Afuki Mimar Dloasi Le Maika. You know this is coming to teach us. Lafuki Lamar excludes you. Dloasi Le Maika Li Gara. We didn't make offense for his roof. Says the Gemara, but it's not really true. V'lohi Mi'ave he made offense. V'yishaita v'shad yazika. At that moment, what happened was the wind knocked down the fence. Concludes the Gemara. Amar Rav Chanina Neiman in Bali Rice in Bavel. Why there no Bali Rice on in Bavel? They shochlin Toradin, v'shoyzin seichar shel hizmi. They eat beets and they drink beer grown on hizmi, a type of bush. Amar Rav Yochanan Neimayin mitayron bebavel. They shochlin tardin v'shoyzin seichar v'rochzin b'mei peras. You know, there's no people with saras. They eat beets and they drink beer and they bathe in the waters of the Meiferes of the Euphrates. Hadron Alocha Madir, of that incredible sugya, how important we see learning Torah. Torah saves from all disease and everything. We should do an incredible chazar of the 7th parak of Amadir, and Amir Tashem tomorrow will begin the 8th parak on Daf